Hi, my name is Carl Herzog. I'm a public historian for the USS Constitution Museum. I'm getting ready for a presentation on the tactics that were used in the battle between USS Constitution and HMS Guerriere. And to help illustrate that, I thought I'd build a couple models, small models of the ships that we could push around a table and show the tactics of the battle and how the battle unfolded. So in order to do that, first I have to build a couple models. So I'm using 1/1200th scale models. This is one made of USS Constitution. There's another one of a 38 gun frigate, not specifically HMS Guerriere. GHQ is one of a couple companies that make these. They're mostly designed for people who are enthusiastic about replaying these edge of sail battles on the tabletop as war games, but they're also great for collecting and just painting and learning more about the time period. We're going to be using them on tabletop to illustrate the tactics that were involved in Guerriere. So let's take a look and see what these models look like. So here the two models are out of the box. In the foreground, the smaller ship with the smaller sail settings is going to be our 38 gun frigate HMS Guerriere. And in the back is the 44 gun frigate, American frigate USS Constitution, which we're all familiar with. These come with only a couple different parts that need to be assembled, and the rest of it is just a question of painting the model. What I've done here is glue each of them to a fairly wide tongue depressor, and this allows me to manipulate the model while I'm painting it. The quarter galleries on each of these come as a separate piece that I've already glued on at this point. And I've cleaned off the extra flashing around the molded sails and masts, and all of this is now ready for priming. One of the interesting things that you can notice about the detail accuracy of these models already from this example is the differences in size between the two ships. It becomes easy to see already why USS Constitution had something of an advantage over Guerriere when they met, and we'll see how that played out in both the gunnery and the naval tactics. Next up, priming and painting. Okay, we're back. I have given a quick spray paint of primer to the hulls and the sails, black for the hulls and straight white for the sails. I've added a quarter in here just to keep us have a sense of the scale that we're looking at here. And then over the black and white primer, I gave the traditional black base coat that will cover most of the hull for Constitution. And on Guerriere, I gave it kind of a muddy dark brown coat. The actual colors that HMS Guerriere had when she was in the battle with Constitution are a little bit uncertain. One of the best visual records we have are the ropes paintings that are on display in the USS Constitution Museum. And they show her looking very much like Constitution with the traditional stripe along the gun ports and a dark, if not completely black hull. I decided to go with a slightly browner hull, and we'll give it an ochre yellow streak along the gun ports, because that's sort of along the lines of what a lot of Royal Navy ships are carrying at the time, and matches up with a number of other visual records. The base coat over the rest of the sails is a slightly off-white color to reflect that coloring of the canvas, and I've also at this point glued the spankers onto the mizzen masts. So from here, it's just a question of adding details to the deck and the hull fittings, those gun strakes, clean up the galleries and billet heads, and adding a little bit of detail to the sails and of course the masts behind them. This is probably a good time to point out that I am by no means an expert painter or expert model maker. These are not works of art, nor in my case are they intended to be. However, if you Google 1/1200th scale imagery online, you can see people who do really amazing paint jobs and rigging jobs with these. But for our purposes, they'll be clear enough to give us some 3D perspective on the table as we begin to explore how this battle unfolded. All right, next up a little bit more painting, and then we'll be off to the game table. Okay, here's our final Constitution and Guerriere models. Again, these are 1/1 1/1200th scale models, and the quarter in the foreground provides you a sense of that scale. After doing the base painting that we had seen in our last shot, I've added a little bit of detailing to the deck to bring out deck fixtures, guns, and the like. Painted the mast and yards, and added a little bit of a wash to the sails to just give some of the lines and everything a little bit more pop and distinction. Again, they're not display pieces. They're not either historically 100% accurate nor artistically detailed. My fumbling fingers paint as well as they can, but I think they will help serve us in providing some perspective of the distances between the ships as they maneuvered around each other during the battle. So we're going to go head out to take a look at the battle. If you'd like to see that video, there should be a link to it in the comments on this video.